Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD. For those of you that are new here, welcome. For those of you that are back here again, I'm glad to see many familiar names actually on the board where I can see who's here. The way that these webinars work, you create them with your questions, and no two webinars are alike. The way to do that is there's over here on the right-hand side of the screen, right down there at the bottom, is a chat box. If you would go ahead and write your question to me in the chat box, I will get it. I try to get through as many questions as I can each night. I ask as you write your questions that you do not hit the enter key until the whole question is complete. Each time that you hit the enter key, it actually creates a separate question, and it makes it very difficult for me to follow from my side as I'm trying to figure out where the various pieces of that question went on the message board. As part of the webinar tonight, for those of you that are here live, I will actually be displaying the questions. So you'll be able to see them. I am going to read them. And the reason I read them too is so that those that are listening in on a recorded version, that they'll be able to hear what that whole question is too. So I'll try to answer as many questions as I can tonight, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. But for those of you that have been around Lyme for a while, know this is a complex illness, and I don't have answers for everything, but I have a lot of answers, as many of you know. And together, I think we can learn some things about Lyme, and hopefully we can find some ways to change your treatment and hopefully improve the outcomes that many of you are having. During the webinar tonight, I am creating a recording. And tomorrow morning, around 6 to 6:30 Seattle time, somewhere in that range, which is Pacific Coast time, which is 3 hours different than the East Coast of the US, for those of you that aren't familiar with that concept. You'll get an email from me saying that the recording is ready for you to view. Also, in that email link will be another a link to sign up for next Wednesday's webinar. And so tonight is the second in the April series, and I will have a third one next week as well too. And then after that, I take a week off. Okay. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. And the first message is from Kit. Hello, Kit. Let's see. I feel very weak, like weights are attached to my body after being in heat. It's one of my last symptoms. I read it's because Lyme causes demyelination of the nerves, which is why MS patients have the same problem with heat. Is this true? And can we fully recover from heat intolerance? So, Kit, yes, people with MS do have heat intolerance, and maybe that is related to the demyelination, maybe not. If you have Lyme and you have demyelination, it should be showing up in an MRI. So, and you wouldn't just have demyelination unless you have some other nerve symptoms like loss of feeling somewhere or a loss of ability to use an arm or a leg. Something major is what happens when a nerve loses its covering. That covering is called myelin. Demyelination makes it so nerves don't work right, okay? And that's what we see in MS. Now, neurologic dysfunction in Lyme does not always involve demyelination. In fact, most of the time it doesn't involve demyelination, okay? So yeah, it could be if you have demyelination, yeah, that could be part of it, but not all heat intolerance in Lyme is due to demyelination. In terms of whether it is a permanent thing, there are, unfortunately, sometimes when people have Lyme, there are parts of the illness that even when we get somebody better, we're not able to get over, okay? However, it doesn't necessarily need to be a permanent thing, and perhaps maybe the longer you treat, it will eventually respond. The one thing I can tell you is in treating Lyme is that not all the symptoms respond in the same time frame. So there are some symptoms that take longer to recover, and no two people are alike. So there's one person where the brain will get better fast and they'll start thinking better and their energy is stuck, and we take months and years to get their energy better. And it could be the flip situation for somebody else, okay? And no, I don't have any good ideas on how to help with your heat intolerance other than to avoid the heat. So anyhow, I hope that gives you some insights there, Kit. Thank you for that question. All right. So many of you, just so you know too, I noticed that I bring two dogs with me to work, and they're here. And so I noticed that they're hopping around. So You may see some black flashes in back of you. If you do, those are my Basenjis. So yes, you will have seen something. It looks like one of them just laid down there. So anyhow, okay, so the next question is from Oscar. Hello, Oscar. Let's see. Good afternoon, Dr. Ross. Do you agree with the Marshall Protocol stance on keeping vitamin D low? Also, if my blood pressure is already on the low side, still okay to take magnesium malate if I'm having nerve fasciculations? All right, so hold on here, everyone. I'm having a bit of a lighting problem. My computer is going in and out. I'm going to just change my lighting here just a second. See if that creates a little bit more stability. I noticed it was going yellow and white, yellow and white. So I hope that works a little bit better. All right. So, so the Marshall Protocol, everyone, is a protocol that was developed by a PhD, not a physician, but a PhD doctor called Trevor Marshall. And Trevor Marshall developed the Marshall Protocol initially to treat a condition he suffered from called sarcoidosis. And so what sarcoidosis is, it's a condition where you develop a bunch of tumors, lesions in your lungs, and sometimes all the way down into the liver. And they're made up of fibrous material, and they're thought to be due to infection in some people. All right, so a kind of infection where it's germs that live inside of cells. And it's not clear which those infections are. You can see these germs under the microscope. We don't know how to identify what they are, all right? So Trevor Marshall's protocol, called the Marshall Protocol, involves using low doses of various antibiotics that can get inside of cells. And to facilitate getting those antibiotics and to make it easier to get those antibiotics in, Dr. Marshall believes that you need to lower your vitamin D levels as well, too, okay? Now, Lyme is also an infection that lives inside of cells, one form of the Lyme germ. The Lyme germ also has two other forms. So the Lyme has a spirochete, which is the corkscrew-looking thing that many of you have seen on the internet before. Lyme also has a form of the germ that moves inside of cells and lives there just like Trevor Marshall's germs live inside of his cells, okay? And then also Lyme takes on a form called a cyst, a microscopic cyst form of the germ, all right? Now, in treating Lyme, yes, we have to get antibiotics inside the cells to deal with intracellular Lyme. But we also have to use antibiotics at doses that kill spirochetes and antibiotics at doses that kill cyst forms. And we need to use antibiotics at doses that force themselves into tissues that don't have good blood flow, okay? So my experience is using low-dose antibiotics, even by lowering vitamin D, like Dr. Marshall proposes, does not work well for Lyme, because Lyme is a different animal with two additional forms. And in addition, it lives deep in tissues that don't have good blood flow. So we need to use high-dose antibiotics. The other observation is I think vitamin D actually helps support the immune system. And we need to do everything we can to recruit the immune system's help in getting rid of this disorder. And I have not found the Marshall Protocol in any state, including its call to lower vitamin D, to be something useful in treating Lyme disease. And so I do not advocate for it, nor do I agree with his approach of lowering vitamin D when it applies to Lyme. Now, maybe it does help with sarcoidosis, but I don't think it's something that is useful in treating Lyme disease, all right? In fact, I find it better to actually push my vitamin D levels to the higher side. People should know that you should know that vitamin D is actually controversial. Most doctors think it's just used to regulate calcium levels. But there is another alternative body of science that is starting to suggest that vitamin D at higher levels in you kind of takes on an effect of a super hormone in a sense. It can act like a hormone. And it helps regulate how all your hormonal systems work. It can help your immune system work well. It may even, and has been shown to have benefit in neurologic conditions as well too. So most of us these days that are treating Lyme are trying to get our vitamin D levels so they're somewhere between 40 and 70 or 40 and 80 on the scale that we use here in the United States. And that's because it does other functions, okay? It does these other good functions, okay? All right. Thank you for that question, Oscar. Good luck to you. All right. Hello, Lori. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for everything. I'm taking Cemento, Banderol, and Stevia in 4 ounces of water. Is it okay to take all together 2 times a day? Should I pulse them? So it is okay to take all of those at the same time together. All right. So everyone, what Lori's doing, she's using the herbs called Cemento and Banderol. Cemento is a Nutramedix product of an herb called cat's claw, and Banderol is a Nutramedix product of an extract from a tree called the Otoba tree. Those 2 herbs there's been experiments done looking at those herbs conducted by a researcher named Eva Choppy. Her last name is spelled S-A-P-I. And about 6 years ago in the Townsend Letter, she published a study that showed that those 2 herbs together work very well individually at treating all 3 forms of the Lyme germ and removing biofilm. And when you use the 2 together, you get an astronomical kill and removal of 100% of biofilm. Okay, those are from Petri dish experiments published about 6 years ago in the Townsend Letter. Based on those studies, I started working with Banderol Cemento, and I discovered that it works about 85 to 90% of the time on my patients, which is the same as prescription antibiotics. And I like it, so I use them. I use this about as much as I do prescription antibiotics in my practice. All right. Now, stevia is one of the latest things that she researched about a year ago. And stevia, many of you may know, is a plant that we can use because it has a sweet taste to it, although it's got an aftertaste to it that it doesn't make it the best way to sweeten food sometimes. But she, in her Petri dish experiments again, looked to see if stevia could help do a few things. Number one, remove biofilms. And secondly, could it treat a form of Lyme that's starting to gain some interest, a different state of Lyme, I should say, called a persister cell. All right, so a persister cell is not the 4th form of Lyme, okay? So there are 3 forms of Lyme. That's the spirochete, form of Lyme that lives inside of a cell called intracellular Lyme, and cyst Lyme. And then there is a state of a cyst and a state of a spirochete where they slow their metabolism way down and start ignoring the antibiotics. Those are called persisters, all right? And there's starting to be a lot of interest in this idea of persisters, what we can do about them. But Dr. Choppy, in trying to figure out what to do about them, experimented to see if stevia might work on this. And she found that stevia can help persisters. And her experiments show that stevia has the ability to break down about 40% of biofilm. Now, keep in mind, Banderol Cemento have been shown to remove, by her same experiments, 100% of biofilm. All right. So stevia you can use possibly to treat persisters, possibly to remove biofilm. I've used them. In fact, I even have an article about them in the Treat Lyme book. But my experience is it just doesn't do that much. And I think what the problem is that it's just not well absorbed out of the intestines in any meaningful way that's going to deal with Lyme inside of you, okay? But if you want to use them, yeah, you could mix them together. You could take the Cemento and the Banderol and the stevia all at the same time, all right? Now, Cemento and Banderol, everyone, you may know of them because they come to us out of something also called the Cowden protocol. And Dr. Cowden, in his protocol, has published material that says that basically you should take these separate from each other by 15 minutes. Let them stand in water for 15 minutes each before you take them, okay? And because Dr. Cowden believes that there is an energetic component in addition to a biochemical component to how these work, okay? So from an energetic standpoint, he would get concerned that these 2 herbs mixed together might cancel out each other energetically. To be honest with you, I have never found any difference, all right? So I have my patients take it together at the same time. I have them take their Banderol Cemento with other things. The only thing that I suggest that people do with Banderol Cemento is that when you take them away from food, because food can decrease the absorption of them. And what I mean by away from food is that you take them at least 30 minutes, you stop taking them at least 30 minutes before you eat, up through 2 hours after you eat. Okay, so that window that begins half hour before food through 2 hours after food, you do not want to take your Banderol Cemento. Okay, all right. I want to show you some articles to take a look at here real quick. So in the Treat Lyme book, this is the Treat Lyme book at treatlyme.net. Many of you are familiar with it. Take a look at the chapters tab here, all right? And under the chapters, take a look at underneath biofilms. You'll see that I have an article about biofilms and things I find to work well. And here's the article on stevia and also the one on Otoba bark, which is Banderol, and cat's claw, which is Cemento. Okay, so that's how you could find the information that I've written about both of those. All right. All right. So let me go back here. All right, Lori, thank you for that question. I know that was a long-winded response, but I wanted to put this in context for everyone else too. Oh, should you pulse them? I don't think with these it actually matters. I think using continuous is okay. All right. Thank you for that question. Hello, Brenda. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross. I'm grateful for your webinars. No questions tonight. Thanks, Brenda. I appreciate that. Everyone, I actually do not look these over before I post them. I mean, sometimes I'm scanning them quickly as I post them for you to see. But I just realized that that's what Brenda said was a compliment. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hello, Lori. Let's see. Also, Dr. Ross, I'm killing spirochetes if I'm not. Oh, also, Dr. Ross, am I killing spirochetes if I am not? And I think there's a second part of the question, herxing. Okay, so Lori's asking, do you need to herx to kill things? All right, so everyone, most of you know that what a herx is as you start killing Lyme germs, you get worse. And what happens in Lyme is as we start killing the germs, the immune system sees the dead bug parts, the dead Lyme parts, the toxins also they get released from the inside of the germs and reacts by making more inflammation chemicals called cytokines, all right? And those cytokines are also made by white blood cells. Whenever white blood cells see Lyme, we also make too many cytokines. In fact, cytokines are what give us our Lyme symptoms, all right? So cytokines, when our white blood cells make them from seeing Lyme, are good and bad. On the good side, cytokines cause more white blood cells to be made. They draw the white blood cells to where the infection is, and they help those white blood cells work better. That's all great. But for most people with Lyme, their immune system and trying to get rid of Lyme eventually makes too many cytokines because it tries harder and harder because it's not doing a good job. And too many cytokines make it so you can't think. They disturb the sleep center so you can't sleep. They give you fatigue. They make you hurt all over, and they make it so you can't think. And about anything else that we call Lyme symptom generally has as a component too many cytokines, all right? So now, as we start killing Lyme germs, the immune system sees those dead bug parts and also the toxins from the inside and reacts by making more cytokines, which makes it look like your Lyme is getting worse, all right? Now, does everybody get a Herx reaction? What I find in my experience is no. About 90% of people Herx, but 10% of people do not Herx. They're not set up, they're not wired in a way where they're going to Herx. And they still get better. Now, the trouble is if you're not Herxing, you're sometimes wondering, is this working? All right. Because the thing about a Herx is it gives you a little bit of a clue that maybe the treatment is working. If you get knocked down, that's a sign you're killing things and that treatment is working. All right. So the people that don't Herx, I actually think are the lucky ones. They don't have to suffer through their treatment, right? Or suffer as much through their treatment. But the problem is if you're one of the people that it's taking a long time to turn the corner, then you're left wondering, is treatment working? But to answer your question, can you go through Lyme treatment without Herxing? Yeah. And because you don't Herx doesn't mean it's not necessarily working. All right. Good luck, Lori. Thank you for that question. All right. Hello, Rita. Hold on here just a minute. All right, let's see. Chronic Lyme sufferer diagnosed 1 year ago, only treated with doxy except for 10 days of amoxicillin for a tooth infection that was more effective for Lyme than the 3 months of doxy. My question to you is, would your regimen of Claritin, 500 milligrams 2 times a day, and tinidazole 500 milligrams 2 times a day be effective as a pulse dose? Okay, so I don't think you I think Claritin, just so you know, I think you have a typo there. Claritin is an antihistamine, actually. I think what you mean is either clarithromycin, which is also known as Biaxin, or that's probably what you mean there. There's also something else called ceftonir and something called cefuroxime, but I suspect you probably mean clarithromycin here. So can you pulse clarithromycin into tinidazole? The answer is yes, okay? And I'll explain why you might want to do that here in a minute. So clarithromycin, 500 milligrams twice a day, treats intracellular Lyme and also treats the spirochete form of the Lyme germ. Tinidazole treats the cyst form of the Lyme germ, and according to some Petri dish research from Dr. Choppy, yes, Dr. Choppy, she keeps showing up tonight, her Petri dish research shows that tinidazole is effective at breaking apart biofilms too. In fact, it could work about on 95% of biofilms according to her Petri dish research, all right? So collectively, these two antibiotics treat all three forms of the Lyme germ and can remove biofilm. That's great. There is some research that says that to treat these things called persister cells, which I mentioned earlier tonight, that if you start and stop antibiotics, that the Lyme germs that have moved into persister state will wake up and they'll start to respond to the antibiotics again. And so one way to use your antibiotics then would be to do like a 4-day on, 3-day off regimen. And yes, you could do the clarithromycin and the tinidazole as a means of doing that. 4 days on, 3 days off, okay? All right, and so I want to know, let's see. So yeah, you could either use that regimen continuously or you could try to pulse dose it, see what works best for you. All right. All right. Very good, Rita. Thank you for that question. Hello, Sarah. Let's see. Hi, doctor. Will Alinea kill ropeworms? Any suggestions for natural parasite remedy? Will Alinea harm if no parasites are present? Thanks for everything. All right. So ropeworms has shown up on the Lyme discussion groups over the last months, and there still is a discussion about whether they truly are parasites or whether they are just mucus accumulations from the intestines. I tend to fall on the side of thinking that they are not true parasites, that they are actually just mucus accumulation that looks like parasites in the intestines, okay? So I'm not a big supporter of treating ropeworm. In terms of a natural parasite remedy, what is a natural parasite remedy? So natural parasite remedy would involve using something called black walnut hull, and sometimes artemisinin thrown into that can be useful too. I find if there truly are parasites that are there, though, that the natural remedies only work about 40% of the time. I don't think there are really good natural remedies to deal with parasites. And so my preference when somebody might have parasites is to deal with them using the universal parasite killer, something that kills about any kind of parasite based on how it works. And that's the prescription medicine called Alinea, all right? And that's why, Sarah, that's what you're mentioning here. Now, will Alinea cause harm to you if you don't have parasites? There's side effects that can happen with Alinea, but generally we think of Alinea of having minimal side effects of mainly GI upset. Although just earlier this week, I have a patient that I think got a lot more fatigue as a side effect and developed some neurologic symptoms as a side effect of being on Alinea, even though those are not published side effects. The timing of some of these problems with her coincides with the Alinea, which then raises a rule that I use in medicine too, which is anything can happen to anyone with anything. Now, that may sound kind of strange. What I'm trying to say by that is sometimes people get side effects from medicines that are not published side effects, okay? So just keep that in mind. If there's something odd that starts happening shortly after you begin a new antibiotic or a new supplement, it is possible that that could be due to a side effect of that new medication or that new supplement, okay? Keep that in mind, all right? All right. Very good, Sarah. Good luck to you. Hello, Brittany. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks for all you do for the community. You're welcome. I was wondering if Lyme could be a secondary, tertiary, or minimal issue for some, while mold, yeast, and toxins can be worse off in some folks. Yes, that's true. It is possible. So, in my opinion, and this is based on my opinion, this is what I see in my practice, all right? Not everyone that gets Lyme infection necessarily gets Lyme disease. All right. So I have people that have very, very positive testing for Lyme. They had tick bites, and yet they don't have any symptoms at all of Lyme. Okay. So for some people, I think our immune systems deal with it. I think they either get the germ under control before we get Lyme disease from our Lyme infection, or they control it. It is possible to test positive for Lyme. But one of the things I'm always looking for when I see somebody is to figure out what else could be triggering this mess. Could it be mold toxins? Could it be yeast? And there are some people that, based on the story of how things evolved with their illness, that they were doing great until they moved into a building with black mold. Well, guess what? I'm going to probably go after the black mold first, okay? Or they were doing great until they took their third round of antibiotics for ear infections, and suddenly they got worse and gassy and bloated. Well, I'm going to treat for yeast probably, all right? So some of it depends on how the story unfolds. And I don't think we should all be confused into thinking that every time we see a Lyme infection positive test, that necessarily means it's Lyme that is the big problem. We have to do a good job of taking a good history to look and see, is there something else or anything else that might be triggering the problem? Okay? All right. Very good. Thank you. Oh, that does raise a question. If somebody is healthy and they have positive testing, should they treat? My answer is no. And here's why my answer is no. I think that we use antibiotics when somebody has Lyme ongoing for a while to actually knock the germ load down so that it doesn't bother them as much. But if you are somebody that has had Lyme in you for a year or more, I don't think we ever get rid of it with antibiotics in 99% of people, okay? There probably is a rare person we do get rid of it, but I think for the majority of people, we don't get rid of it. And so if my goal of antibiotics is to get a person healthy, not eradicate the germ, but just get them healthy, and they already are pretty healthy, not on antibiotics, why would I want to give them an antibiotic? Now, I know some of my colleagues will use antibiotics. They're giving them under the hope that they're going to wipe out the germ. Well, I have a bigger concern. My concern, if we give antibiotics to somebody that doesn't have active Lyme, is that there is a risk, actually, a partial risk, that we may trigger the germ to get more resistant. And then their immune system can't keep it under control. And then they start getting Lyme disease from our using the antibiotics when all they had was Lyme infection, not causing them problems. All right. So I think we have to be careful about how we use antibiotics. I use them to knock the germ down to get a person to feel better. But at a point, I think we need to stop using them too. And I don't treat everyone that has a Lyme infection that's healthy, or I don't treat people that are healthy if they have Lyme infection, because I think we should use the antibiotics only to get a person well, all right? Because I don't want to cause bigger problems down the road. All right. Thank you for that question, Brittany. Hello, Karen from Alberta. Hello. Let's see. Have you seen any cases where Lyme has caused colitis? My 9-year-old was diagnosed last year. I have Lyme. And I think, Karen, there may have been a second part here. Let me see if I can find it. Well, I see a second. I think you rewrote it. Let me just look here. Hello, Karen. Let's see. Have you heard of any cases where colitis is caused by Lyme? My 9-year-old was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is what UC stands for, everyone, last year, and I have Lyme. All right. So is it possible that ulcerative colitis is caused by Lyme? Yes, it is. But I don't think all ulcerative colitis is caused by Lyme. All right. So for some people, when they get Lyme infection, it can set up a condition where it triggers autoimmune illness. All right. So what's autoimmune illness? Autoimmune illness is a situation where your immune system starts attacking you. All right. And ulcerative colitis is a condition where the immune system starts attacking the lining of the intestines. So it's an autoimmune illness. All right. And we know that Lyme can sometimes trigger autoimmune illnesses. Lyme can trigger rheumatoid arthritis. Lyme can be a cause or trigger multiple sclerosis, all right? So we know Lyme can do that. Could it be a cause of ulcerative colitis? Yes, it's very possible. Is it? I don't know. There's no way of proving if it is. If I've got somebody with ulcerative colitis, I'm going to definitely treat their Lyme if they have Lyme. One thing I want to do if they have ulcerative colitis is make sure that I don't have something else inflaming the intestines, like having too many yeast living in the intestines. So I'm usually going to treat for yeast overgrowth in the intestines if I think that there's a possibility it's there. All right. How do you know if there's too many yeast in the intestines? Well, let me show you some tools you can look at. All right. So I'm in the Treat Lyme book again at treatlyme.net. All right. Take a look in the chapters tab again. In terms of figuring out if you might have too many yeast, there's some articles that you can take a look at. And the one that you can look at to figure out if there might be yeast triggering some of the problems is this one called A Silent Problem. Do you have yeast? Okay. So click on that article. I talked to you about how to diagnose yeast. And then in this chapter, I have articles about how do you kill yeast if it's there, etc. Okay. All right. Let me go back here again. All right, Karen, good luck. I hope your son does well. I had to figure out, I forgot what sex your child was actually. So I hope your son does well. And thank you for that question. All right. Hello, John. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. What do you suggest for gastritis after being on antibiotics for about 2 years? I have tried Asifex and DGL, but it is not working. Okay, so I'll make a few comments. I would actually need to know some more things to give you the most accurate answer, okay? But the problem, I'm thinking here for a minute. All right, so gastritis, everyone, means inflammation of the lining of the stomach, which can give you a lot of nausea, basically, and burning kind of irritation in the gut. One thing, John, that you ought to make sure that you don't have that could be a cause of your gastritis is actually an infection due to something called H. pylori. And so that's H period and then pylori, P-Y-L-O-R-I. The way we figure out if you have that, there's a blood test we can do to see if you've developed antibodies against it. The other thing I would say is if you have ongoing gastritis and it's not improving, you may also want to have a GI doctor look down into your stomach just to see truly what's going on there, maybe even do biopsies, okay? All right, because not all gastritis, even after antibiotics, is caused by the antibiotics, and rarely people even get stomach cancer. Not that I'm saying you have stomach cancer, but if things aren't getting better with treatment, then you ought to go ahead and have that done as a precaution, all right? All right, now, how do I like trying to fix gastritis? Well, one thing I like to do is to be on the deglycerated licorice, which is the DGL that John talks about here. But it can sometimes take a good 1 to 2 months. So the big thing, John, that I want to make sure is you took it long enough, okay? So deglycerated licorice, everyone, is licorice that has a chemical group removed called the glycyrrhiza group. So it's deglycerated, removed glycyrrhiza from licorice. The reason we remove that is the glycyrrhiza group can trigger high blood pressure, all right? Now, the amount of licorice that you want to take is about 300 to 320 milligrams. Most companies make a tablet that has about that strength. and you want to chew it. So you want to make sure you're chewing it so that the spit in your mouth interacts with chemicals in the licorice. And what happens then is that provides a microscopic gelatinous coat that coats your food pipe as well as the lining of your stomach, all right? And if you do that, two capsules, a total of 640 milligrams chewed before meals 3 times a day and before bedtime. And if you do that for a month to 2 months, usually that's going to work. So first of all, John, make sure you took enough and that you did it that long, okay? Secondly, the other thing you can add to that can be helpful is aloe vera. You can get a food-grade aloe vera gel or aloe vera liquid, and you would want to do 1 ounce, swish and swallow also at the time you do your licorice, all right? And that's where I would start looking at it first. Now, if you've done that, and if you've ruled out H. pylori, and you've had somebody look in your stomach, then believe it or not, sometimes gastritis can actually be caused by too low of acid in your stomach. And sometimes actually taking HCl, like acid, can help with that, all right? So those are just some things that I would consider doing, John. But to give you a more accurate approach, I would probably need to talk with you and ask you some questions about things you tried, how long, etc. All right? All right, very good. Oh, John, one other thing too is if you're a smoker, smoking will prolong gastritis as well too. Okay, very good. Good luck to you, John. Hello, Bev. Hold on here, everyone. And no, I'm not having caffeine right now. This is actually water. I do want to go to sleep tonight myself too. Anyhow, let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. What is your guidance for addressing joint pain and fatigue when dealing with Borrelia, Bartonella, and Rickettsia co-infections? All right. So in terms of joint pain is caused by inflammation in the joints, okay? So you want to definitely treat your infections, all right? So make sure that you are on antimicrobials that will kill them, all right? In terms of one of the antibiotics prescription-wise that you might want to build into your treatment is a tetracycline. And that would be like a minocycline or a doxycycline. And that is because in addition to killing the germs, tetracyclines have an anti-inflammatory property too, all right? So now, I'm not saying that's the only antibiotic you should be on, but one of them could be a tetracycline that can help with inflammation. Secondly, to lower inflammation, I like working with curcumin. Curcumin is a component of turmeric. It gets inside of white blood cells and limits the white blood cells' ability to make cytokines. If you can stop cytokine production or limit it, that decreases inflammation too. The amount of curcumin that I like to use, I like to use a liposomal variety of curcumin. Liposomal means it's microscopically wrapped in fat, okay? And I like to have people, and the product I like using for that is a product made by Thorne called Mariva 500. It's microscopically wrapped curcumin. And you want to take 500 milligrams 3 times a day. And if that's not adequate, then you want to do 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. If that's not helpful enough, then I will sometimes also add a brown seaweed extract. The brown seaweed is called Eclonia cava, sold as a product called FibroBoost. And that brown seaweed extract is a very strong antioxidant that also lowers inflammation. And you would want to do 2 pills of that twice a day, okay? So be on a tetracycline as part of treating your germs, although make sure you're doing other things to get rid of all your germs besides just a tetracycline, all right? That is other antibiotics. Number 2, use curcumin up to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. Number 3, if that's not working adequately, add in FibroBoost, 2 pills 3 times a day, okay? All right. Now, the other thing that you could do is a prescription anti-inflammatory called Plaquenil. Plaquenil will even help your doxy or your minocycline work better. Plaquenil is a quinine medicine. It used to be used to treat malaria. It's not used that often anymore because it really doesn't work that well. But the number one prescriber these days of Plaquenil tends to be rheumatologists, because they use it to lower inflammatory chemicals in joints too, all right? And if you were to do it, it's 200 milligrams twice a day. And if you get over 200 milligrams twice a day, be aware that it can lead to inflammation in the back of the eyeball. We call that retinitis. So some people, if you start reading about Plaquenil, you're going to see that people advise doing regular eye exams to make sure you're not damaging the back of your eyeball. You actually only need to do that if you get up to 200, over 200 milligrams twice a day. All right. So at 200 milligrams twice a day, you don't need to do regular eye exams. You don't need to do any, actually. But if you get to higher doses, the way that rheumatologists sometimes will use it, then you ought to be doing eye screens periodically to make sure you're not getting into retinitis in the back of the eyeball, okay? All right. All right, so that's how to deal with the inflammation part of things, all right? Now, fatigue. A few things about fatigue. Number one, lower cytokines, because cytokines trigger fatigue, all right? So that's beyond the Mariva 500 I just talked about. Number two, to deal with fatigue, I like to support the adrenals. And to support the adrenals, I like working with the herb ashwagandha. And that has been used for thousands of years in Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine, because it was observed to help give more energy to people. Now, what we know from animal and studies is that it actually helps your adrenals work better. It helps your thyroid work better, okay? That's probably how it helps your energy. But get a 400 milligram pill, 2 pills in the morning, and 2 pills between 1 and 2, all right? All right, then the other thing you might want to consider doing for low energy, although usually this is something I'm going to add in later in treatment, like about 6 months to 9 months if all these other things aren't working, is I might add in something to help rebuild the covering of your mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy factories that can get damaged in our cells. And to build the mitochondria covering, I like using something called NT factor. And the NT factor has in it the fats that make up the covering of the mitochondria, plus a bunch of micronutrients that help your mitochondria energy factories work better. And that NT factor you use as 2 pills 3 times a day, and you do that for 2 months. And then after 2 months, you decrease it down to 1 pill 3 times a day. There's been studies done looking at the NT factor, and NT factor is shown in studies to actually, after 2 months of you doing it, there are average energy improvements of 40% in people that report fatigue. That's pretty good, all right? The product I like using for my NT factor is called NT Factor Energy, made by Research Nutritionals, okay? All right. Now, don't forget the other parts that you ought to do also for fatigue is make sure you're getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And if you got to get herbs or drugs to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, get that 7 to 9 hours of sleep, okay? So correct sleep, lower cytokines, be on ashwagandha, treat your infections, and then also consider doing mitochondria support with the NT factor. Okay. All right, Bev. I hope that gives you some insight. The other thing is make sure you don't have low thyroid. Have your doctors help look at that with you as well, too. Okay. Very good. Good luck to you. Oh, let me just look at one other thing here. Do a quick screen share here, everyone. All right, so back in the Treat Lyme book again, there in the chapters, there is a whole chapter I wrote on energy and fatigue, okay? So here's my article on mitochondria. The other thing you want to look at is being on a paleo diet is great for energy. Also, it's useful to get inflammation down. And this diet, the best brain, inflammation, pain, energy, and detox diet ever, that's my paleo diet. Take a look. It's got a lot of good supporting documents, okay? All right, and then look at this article called Fix Fatigue, Boost Your Energy, the Basic Steps. It basically is a summary of what I just talked to you about, all right? So anyhow, take a look at these articles. I think this is just some good information for you as well, too. The reason I'm showing you this is just realize that I have written probably articles about most problems you're going to have in Lyme, and you can find them all under this chapters tab and look for the topic you want to look at. So if you have low energy, Look at this chapter called Energy and Fatigue. If you have questions about detox, take a look at my chapter on detoxification. If you have questions about how do you boost your immune system, take a look at the immune system chapter. What are you going to do for sleep? Take a look at the sleep chapter, okay? So I have information about most problems you're going to run into in Lyme. You're going to find it all under the chapters tab here, okay? All right, let me go back here again. All right. Thank you for that question. All right, let's see here. This looks like a question from Laura. Hello, Laura. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Is there anything I can do to stop the pins and needles on my spine? I am currently treating Lyme and Babesia. Can Epstein-Barr cause pins and needles? All right, so I don't think Epstein-Barr would. The pins and needles means nerve injury. All right, so your nerves are being affected. What can do that? Lyme can. Also, Bartonella can. And just because you have pins and needles doesn't mean you have Bartonella, but I'm asking you to consider, do you have Bartonella? All right. So the way to figure out if you might have Bartonella is look to see if you have the symptoms that suggest Bartonella. Testing is not that good for Bartonella, and so I usually advocate treating based on the symptoms, all right? So I'll show you an article in a minute that you could take a look at to figure out if you have enough symptoms that look like Bartonella, and if you do, you should treat that, all right? Second thing is, if you for the pins and needles, you want to repair the nerves, which involves repairing the mitochondria, energy factories that are found in every cell, including our nerves, and also being on something called glutathione. Glutathione is the master reparative, fixes everything, antioxidant that is used to repair nerve injury. It also helps detox, okay? So for your pins and needles, there's two essential things I would look at. Number one, be on the NT factor I just talked about, 2 pills 3 times a day. I'd also get on glutathione. I like using a product by Research Nutritionals called Trifortify, and they have 2 flavors now, Trifortify Orange, Trifortify Watermelon, all right? And you would do 5 milliliters 1 time a day, okay? Those are 2 essential components. Also, for the pins and needles, get inflammation down. That means work with your curcumin, okay? All right, so where can you read more about some of these things? And go back here again. All right, so I have a whole chapter on how do you repair neuropathy. So pins and needles are neuropathy, all right? So look at my chapter called Brain and Nerves and take a look at this article called Neuropathy Repair, Heal That Tingling, Numbness, and Pain. And in here, I talk about glutathione, I talk about NT factor, I talk about curcumin, okay? All right, now, I just want to show you something, all right? So I keep mentioning supplements tonight. I've mentioned a few things by product name, but usually generically. If you're looking at what products do I recommend, and these are the ones my patients use, I suggest taking a look at my store called Marty Ross MD Supplements, all right? And so the problem with supplements is that they're only going to work if you're using high-quality products. The majority of supplements that are sold out there at supplement stores and on Amazon are probably of poor quality. In fact, there have been studies where I think even in New York State, the Attorney's General Office went in and studied various supplement products and found that the majority don't have the ingredients in them. And in addition, they may actually have harmful fillers that could hurt you, all right? So what I've tried to do here at Marty Ross MD Supplements is look at, investigate, find products and brands that I think have the greatest chance of having the most active ingredient. So they sourced for the best quality product. Secondly, I try to find products that do not have a lot of artificial fillers in them that could hurt you, all right? So if you want to know what curcumin product do I recommend, just look up here under the search function, type in the word curcumin, and I think you're going to see 2 products. Actually, I guess there's a few that I have that have curcumin in them. But one is the Mariva 500. The other one is Cytoquel. And so I would take a look at those, okay? All right. There are also Research Nutritionals has a new curcumin product out that I'm going to get up that I haven't posted yet. And then some of these other products that you're seeing here are ones that also have curcumin in them. But my favorite 2 would be the Mariva, or it's found in this product called Cytoquel, all right? All right, then in terms of, I've talked about Research Nutritionals a number of times tonight. They tend to be one of my more favorite product lines. I think they're doing some of the more novel work in terms of things that can help with Lyme. And so we carry the Research Nutritionals products here. So for instance, the Trifortify glutathione that I mentioned earlier, you can find on page 2, right? There's Trifortify Orange and Trifortify Watermelon. You'll find both of them here. All right. All right. Let me go back here. All right, Laura, good luck to you. And take a look at that article. It gives you a lot of good information, all right? Although I did give you the information here too. All right. Hello, Rita. Let's see. Oh, this is the question, Rita, that you wrote earlier about whether to use Claritin, but I think you meant clarithromycin. I see it here now. Hold on here. Let me just look at the rest of this. Or let's see, would it be 4 days of clarithromycin and then? All right, so again, I would do your clarithromycin to nitazole regimen as a 4-day on, 3-day off. You could do that for up to 6 months. I think that would be good. If you don't want to use clarithromycin, you could use tetracyclines like a doxycycline or a minocycline. Those would be substitutes for the clarithromycin, okay? I would not use Zithromax, and the reason is when you're pulsing, you actually want to have the drug out of your body during the period when you're off the drug. Zithromax takes forever to get out. When you stop the antibiotic, it could take a good week before it gets out of you, so it's not a good drug to be pulsing, okay? All right. Hello, Miranda. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have been struggling with just about every symptom of Lyme for 3 years now. I will be coming to see you next month. Oh, good. I look forward to meeting you, Miranda. And I'm so excited. My question for you is whether Lyme can cause amenorrhea. So amenorrhea, everyone, means no more periods, all right? And yes, Miranda, yes, Lyme could lead to amenorrhea. But your doctors should be doing some basic hormonal evaluation too to make sure that you haven't gone into early menopause, for instance, okay? But what can happen is the increased cytokines from Lyme can interfere with correct hormone function, including those the signals from your brain that direct you to have periods, all right? So you may stop ovulating. You may just stop having periods as a result of that. You may get low thyroid as a result of Lyme. That could cause not having periods. The thing that your doctor should be doing, though, they should make sure that you're checking your thyroid and that they've measured a chemical called prolactin, which is what woman's brain makes to cause milk to be made in your breast, okay? If those are normal, then they might want to do something, a progesterone challenge to make sure you can still have periods. But there's some basic steps they should look at to look for the common things that happen even to people without Lyme. But Lyme could be a part of the problem with increased cytokines leading you not to have periods. Anyhow, all right. I'll be glad to answer more about that when you come in. All right. Good luck to you, Miranda. Hello, Bev. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. What is your guidance to deal with joint pain and fatigue? Oh, I think we already answered that. All right. Get out of here. Hello, Matt. How frequently should antibiotics be rotated and based on what criteria in patients on triple therapy? So, in general, I don't want to be on a set regimen for more than 6 months, okay? That's not my philosophy. I know some of my colleagues will rotate every month, every 2 months. I don't think you don't need to do it that frequently. The main reason I do rotate to new regimens is if it's not working, or I will rotate to a new regimen about every 6 months because I think we start getting into risk of resistance, the Lyme germ learning resistance against the antibiotic protocol you're on if it's more than 6 months. But that's just my philosophy of how I work, all right? All right. Good luck to you, Matt. And thank you for that question. Hello, Ben. Thank you. My blood shows no BB and culture test is negative after 4 months without antibiotics. No Lyme symptoms are evident. Is this proof of cure? Unfortunately, no. And I'm sorry about that. We actually have no proof of cure. Okay. First of all, the Lyme disease blood culture measures Lyme in your blood. All right. But it is possible that Lyme can live out of the blood. In fact, the majority of Lyme lives in tissues that don't have good blood flow. So having a negative culture does not exclude having Lyme that just isn't showing up in a way that it can be measured. All right. Also, so if also what you meant is that your Western blot test, which measures antibodies against Lyme, is negative, there's been studies that show that antibodies will also come and go. So having no antibodies does not mean that it's necessarily gone. Okay. Now, could you have gotten rid of it? Yeah. But what I'm saying is there's no proof of it here. And unfortunately, we don't have any testing that proves that Lyme is gone. We just don't. It doesn't exist. I know some of my colleagues will try to do the testing, but in reality, because Lyme can hide, meaning even your immune system may not see it to make antibodies, it could still be there. The answer is we do not have a done test that proves that we're done with treatment or that Lyme is completely eradicated. Sorry about that, Ben. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Sue Ann. Good evening, Dr. Ross. Good evening to you. Thank you for your invaluable advice. You're welcome. And have you known of anyone with Lyme who has successfully come off sleeping meds? I have been on Ambien for the last 6 months, but would like to come off of it. In the beginning, I took 5 milligrams at 10 p.m., 5 more milligrams at 2 a.m. In the, it's like there may be a second part to your question here. In the last week, with the help of a muscle relaxer, I have been able to decrease to 2.5 milligrams at 10 and 2. How long should I stay at this dose before trying to decrease more? Do compounding pharmacies make smaller and smaller doses? When I tried to go cold turkey, my body began shaking. Okay. So, Sue Ann, just so you know, generally, most people don't have withdrawal symptoms from coming off of Ambien, but that doesn't mean you're not. Okay. So it sounds like you do get withdrawal. So the problem is I don't have an ideal time frame over what period of time you should taper off. But can you get off of the Ambien? Yes. My words would be go slow. That sounds like you're going slow. Most people, though, we could just stop cold turkey. You don't even need to do the taper. And in the majority of people, as we get over Lyme, as you lower cytokines that disturb your sleep, that interfere with your sleep centers, causing Lyme, for most people, we're able to actually get off of the sleep medicines, all right? But there is an occasional person where we can't, that there is permanent injury to the sleep centers, I think, caused by Lyme. And so there's an occasional person we just can't get off the medicine. But for most people, we're able to get off of them. All right. Good luck to you, Sue Ann. Good luck to you coming off that Ambien. Hello, Heather. Let's see. You are such a blessing. Thank you. Do you have any thoughts on electromagnetic frequencies you care to share? I have multiple sensitivities, and electromagnetic frequencies seems to be becoming I think you said you're becoming shaky. Any tips? Thank you again. Let me make sure there wasn't a further part here, Heather. Nope. If there is, I'm not seeing it here. All right. So electromagnetic frequencies, there are some people that are very sensitive to EMFs. Not everyone. I know, for instance, Dr. Klinghardt out here in Seattle, many of you may know of him, advocates that everyone eliminate electromagnetic frequencies from their world when they have Lyme, and I disagree with that. I do think, though, that there are some people that have become very sensitive to that, and if you are, then you should eliminate them. What do they come from? Well, they're from our lights, emit EMFs. Our wireless devices emit EMFs. Our cell phones emit EMFs. All right. Electrical wires that run around our buildings emit EMFs. And if you find that you are a person that has sensitivities to them, then get rid of them. How do you find out if you're a person that has sensitivities to them? Well, do a trial of removing them. Turn you off your wireless. Turn off your lights. Get rid of your cell phone. Try it for a few days. See what happens. Do you do better? If you do, then maybe that's a clue that you have a problem with it. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, Heather. That's the best advice I have on that one. All right. Thank you very much. Hello, Lauren. Let's see. I live in Florida. I just finished treatment with IV silver, high-dose antivirals, and now oral Flagyl. Are you familiar with the silver protocol? Anything you can suggest on this is appreciated. Also, what are your comments on Flagyl? All right. So, Lauren, silver I just do not find to be that effective of an antimicrobial. I know some people use it. Maybe it does give you benefit. If it does, great, because not every, what I can only talk in is averages. But on average, I find silver to only help people about 30-40% of the time. All right. So those are just my thoughts. I don't think it's going to work effectively for you. Maybe it has already, but just in general, I don't find it to be effective. All right. The other problem with silver is you have to watch about the form you get. Some forms of it can accumulate. If you get too much, you turn blue. Literally, your skin turns blue. And once you turn blue, it doesn't come out. You're stuck looking blue, a blue haze on that. Okay. So be careful about that. So there is a lifetime maximum you can use on your silver. And so the manufacturer should have, the brand you've been using should be able to give you an idea of what the lifetime max is on their product. But be aware, silver can turn you blue. All right, you get blue man syndrome, okay? So I don't like using silver because I don't think it works that often, and I think there's risk inherent using it, all right? Flagyl is a useful antibiotic to treat cyst Lyme, and it can treat intracellular Lyme. Be aware that some people, it's just a hard drug to use. It has a lot of side effects that can make you feel fatigued, and it can sometimes just give you a lot of GI symptoms, but it can be used. Occasionally, a person with Flagyl will get neuropathy. If that does happen, take vitamin B6, 50 to 100 milligrams one time a day, and it should correct that and maybe even make it so you can get back on the Flagyl again too. All right? All right. Good luck to you, Lauren. All right, let's see here. Hello, let's see. Hello, Dr. Ross. What is the best approach in treating Lyme and Brucella? Would you recommend using an oral or IV approach? And if so, which antibiotics would be most effective in treating both infections? So, Ray, I am sorry, but I am not the best person at looking at Brucella. I just haven't had to deal with it, and I'm not that schooled on it, so I'm not going to be able to give you a good comment here. All right. So that would be my response, unfortunately. All right. Good luck to you, Ray. Let's see here. Hello, Jackie. Hi, Dr. Marty. I seem to be seriously addicted to chocolate and need it when anxious. My mom, a naturopath, said this may indicate low magnesium. My level is the lowest acceptable number, so I figure it's too low. As a strict vegan, I won't eat white sugar or honey. Are there any forms of sugar you feel we can eat? Are coconut sugar, brown, or other in moderation okay with Lyme and Candida? Also, could you please briefly explain how Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella, and Candida can affect one's complexion? I am curious if my concerns are from Lyme. Thank you for helping us learn about this crazy illness. You're welcome. All right, so in terms of the complexion, it has not been my observation, nor is it my opinion, based on what I've seen any science on that Lyme, Babesia, or Bartonella affect your complexion. Candida, yeast can though. And so yeast that live in your intestines can affect your skin. I know that may seem a little remote, but let me explain why. So when you have too many yeast in your intestines, if you have too many yeast in your intestines, they release toxins. And there is some evidence that those toxins can get into your bloodstream and interact with your skin. And in people that are predisposed to that interaction with the skin, they can get acne or pimples. That's how it affects your complexion. So having too many yeast in some people triggers acne of the skin, or skin rashes actually too. So rashes or acne, that's your complexion question, okay? But I don't see the other germs as having a relationship to that, all right? In terms of sweeteners, I would avoid coconut sugar and I would avoid brown sugar as well, because they actually will feed yeast, all right? Simple sugars feed yeast, and they will feed yeast as well too. Unfortunately, so your basically sweeteners you can use would be whole vegetable sugar. So carbs that are part of whole vegetables are safe, all right? So I'm not saying you have no sugar, but I'm saying your sources should be not added sugar. So vegetables are fine. Even fruits are fine as long as you're not having more than 1 or 2 servings a day. That would be fine. I generally, if I'm trying to limit carbs to keep yeast at bay, I'm going to avoid whole grains, beans, and legumes. So I like a paleo type diet I mentioned earlier that's going to be rich in good vegetables and rich in fats, okay? And you can take a look at the diet I recommended earlier tonight for that, all right? So those are my thoughts there. All right, good luck to you, Jackie. All right. Hello, Matt. Let's see here. Hold on here just a minute. Okay, let's see. Do you have any experience with or thoughts on LDA therapies for Lyme? All right, so LDA, everyone, stands for low dose allergy therapy. There's a derivative of that called LDI, low dose immunotherapy. All right. So, what happens in both of these is that both of these are ways of regulating the immune system so that there is not overactivity. And there are 2 types of inflammation that this can regulate. One is called Th1 inflammation and something called Th2 inflammation. Th2 inflammation is inflammation that results from allergy. Th1 inflammation is inflammation that results from infection. And both Th1 and Th2 are regulated by a type of cell called a T regulator cell, or a Treg, okay? What LDI and LDA do, what has been discovered, is that if you take something you're allergic to, or if you take the infections that you're becoming inflamed to, and you give them in microscopic doses along with an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, that it has the effect of turning on the T regulatory cells against that thing to turn down either Th2 inflammation, allergies, or Th1 inflammation, Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, okay? All right? Now, I have written an article on LDI. I think that it can help, but I have a concern that for a while, many people were doing it and not being on their antibiotics. I still think you need to kill your germs, because you don't want to just knock out the immune system and its ability to deal with those germs while at the same time not killing those germs, because I'm concerned you could get too much growth, okay? In terms of LDA to deal with allergies, yeah, you can use that to deal with allergies. And I think for some people, it can be beneficial. If you want to read more detail about what I've written on that and why it might help Lyme and also would help with allergies, there's an article I've written. All right, so back in the Treat Lyme book here. So take a look at my chapter on the immune system. Here's the article that I wrote about LDI for Lyme with precautions, okay? All right. All right, Matt, thank you for that question. Hello, Christy. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Russ. Wondering what your thoughts are on using probiotic innocuous kit. 3 doses of 1.5 trillion probiotic organisms in one application versus oral probiotics. Could also please tell me if you can take Cemento and Banderol in capsule form. I experience burning mouth from tinctures. All right, so you can get, so Cemento is cat's claw. There are some manufacturers that do make cat's claw in a pill form. All right. The problem is I have never seen anyone manufacture Otoba bark, which is Banderol, in a pill form. Could you take it? Could you literally fill up capsules full of it and take it that way? You could. I don't see why there would be a problem doing that. I've never done it, though, to be able to comment as to whether it still works as well or not. Okay. All right. And then I just don't have any experience working with this probiotic that you mentioned here to be able to comment. I'm sorry. That one stumps me tonight. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Lauren. Let's see. What are your recommendations for rebuilding the immune system? What do you think about astragalus? All right. So in terms of supporting the immune system, there are some basic steps that you ought to do, which is basically follow my successful treatment recipe, my Lyme disease protocol, right? So support the immune system by taking steps to get sleep, knock cytokines down, all right? It's these excess cytokines that I've mentioned before tonight a number of times that ultimately suppress the immune system, all right? Support your adrenal glands by being on ashwagandha, correct low thyroid, be on thyroid medicine. Get yeast out of your intestines because they cause cytokines and suppress your immune system, all right? Be on a good multivitamin that helps your immune system work well. Okay. Those are some basic steps, okay? In addition, there are some other things that you can do. Astragalus is an herb that can help the immune system work better. I think that would be okay to go ahead and do that. It comes to us from Chinese medicine. Other things that can help support the immune system are mushrooms. And I like using a mushroom mix called the, I'm blanking on it right now. It's called the 5 mushroom formula. Is made by JHS Naturals, called the 5 mushroom formula. And I like that one. It's got some maitake, shiitake, reishi, and I believe some cordyceps in it as well. Mushrooms turn on the immune system to fight both viruses and Lyme. If you were to do the 5 mushroom formula, you would want to take 1 pill 3 times a day. It's usually how people do that, okay? But don't forget to do the basics, okay? Get sleep, correct thyroid, correct adrenals, lower cytokines, get yeast out, be on a good multivitamin, and don't forget the benefits of exercise. If you're at a point where you can start exercising, add exercise back in. And actually, one of the things that is the greatest for the immune system is social interaction. If you're not isolated, or if you are isolated, try to get unisolated. And I know that's hard to do with Lyme, but social interaction, being part of a social group, interacting with people is shown to help boost the immune system as well, too. All right? All right. Good luck to you, Lauren. Actually, I'm going to do a quick screen share here because I'm going to make sure I gave you the right name of that herbal compound here. All right. So I'm just going to look back here at mushrooms. So I'm in my store. I'm just trying to see if I got the right name of that product here. There it is. So the one I was talking about is called the Immune Builder 5 Mushroom Formula. Okay. And I like it's a company made called JHS Naturals. The thing I like about their product is they use they use an extract of mushroom. They're not using ground up. Ground up mushroom may have a lot of contaminants, but if you do an extract, those contaminants have been cleaned out. All right. All right. Let me go back here again. All right, let's see here. Looks like we got another question from Matt. Hello, Matt. Let's see. What do you recommend for treating Bartonella without antibiotics? So the 2 herbs, I like using an herbal protocol that I got from Buhner Herbs, as in many of you may know about Buhner. Buhner is an master herbalist. The 2 things I like to use together, the idea I got from him, is Houtunia and another herb called Siddha Akuta. Those 2 herbs together work about 70-75% of the time. And you can find out more about them also in my article on how to get rid of Bartonella called Kills Bartonella that you can find in the Treat Lyme book, okay? The Houtunia, you would work up to 30 drops twice a day. The Sida acuta, I started at 1/8 teaspoon 3 times a day. And then I have people after 1 or 2 weeks increase that up to 1/4 teaspoon 3 times a day, all right? And that works about 70-75% of the time. All right. Good luck to you, Matt. In terms of recommendations I have about treating Bartonella, take a look at my chapter called Infection Treatment Plans. You'll see I have articles on how to kill viruses, how to get rid of Babesia with prescriptions and herbs. And then here's my article on how to get rid of Bartonella. All right? All right. All right, let's see here. Hello, Lauren. Let's see. What does CD57 and C-reactive protein markers suggest when you are in treatment? All right. So C-reactive protein is a protein that gets elevated with inflammation. And you will see it elevated, especially in traditional rheumatoid or inflammatory arthritis conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or like lupus, those kind of traditional inflammatory arthritises. However, oddly enough, it usually doesn't show up in Lyme. People are going to have red, swollen joints full of fluid, and you check a C-reactive protein, and for some reason, it doesn't often show positive in Lyme. So for most people in Lyme, it's not useful to check, all right? If it is elevated, it does mean you've got inflammation, but you already know that because you're hurt. So I just don't bother doing it. CD57 is a type of white blood cell that is low about 80% of the time in people with chronic Lyme. The problem is there may be other things that trigger it to go low. So having it elevated does not necessarily, or low, does not necessarily mean you have Lyme, all right? So for instance, we know HIV can cause it to be low, all right? But it is low about 80% of the time. It is not a good predictor about where you are in treatment. And the reason is that when it was first developed, we used to think that as you were being treated, if it was low, that it would steadily rise, right? But there were subsequent studies done that showed that what it does actually is it oscillates up and down around a horizontal line. And if it's going to go up somewhere at the end of treatment, it may skyrocket up, all right? But and most people, it doesn't even go back to normal. I just don't use it. I don't think we have a good test to see where we are or even if we're done in treatment, all right? And I have a whole article about the CD57 if you do want to read about that in the Treat Lyme book too. All right. Good luck to you, Lauren. Hello, Judy. Let's see. 1/4/17 diagnosis with Lyme after having clinical symptoms of Lyme for 28 years. What test do you recommend for the heart and brain? Depends on what symptoms you're having. I would need to know more about the specific symptoms as it pertains to the heart and to the brain, because there's a lot of things you could do. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to answer that one specifically for you. All right. Thanks, Judy. Good luck with your treatment too, by the way. Hi, Deb. Could you comment on Lyme and ALS? Have you seen it? All right. So ALS stands for, everyone, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And it is caused by degeneration of something called the dorsal ganglia, which are parts of the spinal cord. And if the dorsal ganglia breakdown, stop working correctly, you wind up start getting muscle wasting and inability to use the muscles. And that can often start out with the difficulty using your legs or your hands, but eventually, if it's not treated or if it progresses, it eventually affects the muscles that make you breathe, and people stop breathing and they eventually can pass away from this, unfortunately. So ALS can be caused by Lyme, but not all ALS is Lyme, okay? So I usually recommend if people do have ALS that they get tested for Lyme to see if it could be Lyme. All right. The other thing, if you have ALS and your Lyme test comes back positive, then I would also treat for Lyme and I would treat for Bartonella, because our worst cases of neurologic Lyme usually have Bartonella associated with them. All right. If you do have ALS, probably the strongest way to go after it, caused by Lyme, that is, IV antibiotics would generally be the way to go. Okay. All right. Good luck, Deb. It's Deb again. Let's see. Hi, Deb. I think it's the same Deb. Have you any experience with IV light therapy? No, I haven't. I'm sorry. I'm not able to comment on that. Hello, Val. Let's see here. Hi, Dr. Ross. Besides Lyme and yeast, do any other organisms involved in tick-borne illness cause herxing when killed during treatment? So my opinion is no. However, keep in mind that sometimes the things we use to kill Bartonella may also kill Lyme. So Houtunia, for instance, the herb Houtunia that we can use to treat Bartonella, even though I would never use it to treat Bartonella, I think sometimes people herx because it does kill Lyme. It's killing Lyme, not Bartonella, all right? So things that are spirochetes will give you die-off, and killing yeast will give you die-off. But general bacteria don't cause die-off reaction, all right? So my experience is, no, I think it's just those two. But if some of the things we use give die-off and we're not using them as part of a Lyme treatment or a yeast treatment, it may be that they are weak, they have some weak activities against Lyme, and that is triggering a die-off reaction from actually killing Lyme, even though they might be things I would never use to treat Lyme because they're just not the greatest agents to do it, okay? All right. Thank you for that question, Val. Good luck. Hello, Kelly. Let's see. Have you had a success eradicating Babesia with the Linea, 500 milligrams 2 times a day in combination with Zithromax 2 times a day? Mepron, clarithromycin, and Flagyl Plaquenil combos have been unsuccessful getting rid of Babesia long-term over 5 years. All right. So Alinea is a anti-parasite that has been shown to work on anaerobic parasites, meaning parasites that don't require oxygen. Now, some of my colleagues, because Alinea is an anti-parasite, will use it to treat the Babesia parasite. I have tried it before. I get mixed results. And I think one of the problems can be is Babesia is not an anaerobic parasite. It's an aerobic parasite. It lives in red blood cells that are full of oxygen, okay? That's what it thrives in. So I'm not clear that Alinea works actually for treating Babesia. That has not been my experience, okay? So you have tried some things that might work, like Mepron and clarithromycin, and I see that they have not worked. Other options that you might look at would be to try something called coartem, which I write about in my Babesia article. You might look at herbal options like cryptolepis and artemisinin. You might also look at using one of my patients that I just had the nastiest time. It took us a few years to get rid of her Babesia, but it finally did work. When we wound up using a combination of quinine coupled with, oh boy, I'm going to blank. Hold on, I'm going to look at the article. We'll see if I wrote it in the article. I did write about it in the article, but I'm blanking here. It's one of my 50-year-old moments here. Yes, I'm a little older than 50, but it is one, I still call it my 50-year-old moment. All right, so I am in the Treat Lyme book. I'm looking at my article called Kills Babesia, a brief guide. So, and I give you all kinds of ideas here, but I'm still here. I'm looking. Let's see. Do I put it here? I am sorry. I am just totally blanking on this one, and I did not write about it in this article. Callie, do me a favor. I want to give you the information, and it will come to me. Just having one of those moments. I can give you information about this protocol that did finally work for a patient of mine, but I am just blanking on it right now. If you would email me at docmarty, it's DOCMARTY at, and it's really long, it's my practice name, and that is at the healing arts with an S partnership.net. Email this question to me again. I will get back to you probably tomorrow. I'm probably not going to wait around and respond tonight, but I can get back to you tomorrow as I think about this regimen. And actually, if I can't think about it, I know which patient's medical record I need to look into to see what we finally came up with her to treat a form of Babesia for which nothing else worked. Okay? All right. Thank you for that question, Kelly. I'm sorry I can't help you with that one protocol. All right. All right, let's see here. Hello, Barbara. Let's see. Hello from Australia. Hello. You are welcome, by the way. Do you have a view on hyperthermia for killing Lyme germ? Thank you. So for those of you that may not be aware of this, there's a lot of Australians or people from Australia often have a hard time getting treatment. All right. There are only a limited number of doctors down there that are treating for Lyme. And as a result, many are actually going to Germany, and they go to Germany where they can get hyperthermia treatment. So that's where this question comes from. So Germany, many of you are even aware of from here in the States and Canada and even England too, that in Germany there is treatment for Lyme using hyperthermia. And I think it gets some mixed results. Okay, so let me talk about that. So the idea of using hyperthermia, getting hot to kill Lyme, comes to us from the days when we used to treat syphilis and we did not have antibiotics. All right. So syphilis was a horrible infection that gave people a lot of neurologic problems, had a lot of symptoms. It used to be called the great imitator, just like Lyme disease is now. And if you can heat up into the range of about 103 to 104 degrees, and you can stay heated for a prolonged period of time, that can kill germs. Now, in the German clinic that they're doing this, they also tend to include it with IV antibiotics at the same time. And so you not only get the hyperthermia killing effect, but it also results in that much heat causes good blood flow to all of your tissues, so you get good IV antibiotic penetration. What I see happens out of people that go to the German clinics that are doing the hyperthermia is they get benefit while they're there, but it's not sustainable. So if you are to do that type of a treatment, you might get benefit, Barbara, but you're going to need to follow through with some further treatment with antibiotics when you get back to Australia. Okay? All right. Those are just my thoughts and my observation on that. All right. All right, everyone. That is it for me for tonight. So in a second here, I'm going to take you over to the Treat Lyme book where you can sign up for next week's webinar. And then also take a poke around there too. I'm really having a hard time with my paywall. Where many of you know that I have it set up so you should subscribe to the Treat Lyme book. It's not always working. But if you run into an article that you're supposed to subscribe, it asks you to subscribe. Those resources help support the work that I'm doing here to even be able to do these webinars, all right? So I'd appreciate if you would do that. And eventually, I hope to work out a solution, but I'm just having a nasty time on it. Many of you may not realize, but I'm my own webmaster too. So I run all this stuff on very much of a shoestring, but I do it because I want to get information out to help as many people as possible. So if you get asked to subscribe, please do so. If you're wanting to donate, the way you can do that is go to the page called Introduction on the Treat Lyme book. And on there, the subscribe button still does work. If you click on that and subscribe, you're donating, okay? I'd appreciate if you would do that as well, too. So we'll do another one of these next week, and then I'm off for a week, at least off from doing webinars for a week, all right? And tomorrow morning, keep a lookout for your email at 6 o'clock, between 6 and 6:30 Seattle time, and you'll get a link to the recording of the webinar, all right? Thanks for being here tonight, everyone, and good luck. I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.